I got you.
All right, creatures of the night, Alex Doriot here from the Talking Taker podcast and our Talking Taker YouTube channel here with another edition of Digging Up the Dead Man, unboxing another addition to the Talking Taker figure and memorabilia collection. This one is going to be an addition, of course, to the Rogues Gallery collection. If you've been following the podcast or our channel, you know that I am trying to collect a figure to represent every single one of the Undertaker's pay-per-view opponents, because that's the idea of our podcast, is to review every single one of the Undertaker's pay-per-view matches. And I've got one that I have been searching for a while and have finally picked up. I am so excited to unbox this one of my most anticipated figure releases in a long while. Friend of the show, as you can see here, Charles Wright, a.k.a. the Godfather, but as he is known here in his one pay-per-view match against the Undertaker, Kama, the Supreme Fighting Machine, a figure I truly never expected that we would get released by Mattel, a classic new generation figure of a gimmick that was really not all that long lasting, but had a pretty significant match against the Undertaker, SummerSlam 1995 in a casket match, and had a very significant, memorable feud with the Undertaker in that at WrestleMania 11, in the middle of Undertaker's match with King Kong Bundy, in the middle of Undertaker's feud with the $1 Million Corporation, not one of the Undertaker's best and most memorable feuds, but the pretty memorable moment in that Kama stole the urn, which had previously been stolen by IRS. Paul Bearer got it back in the middle of that match, but then Kama stole it back to the corporation and then melted it down into this ridiculous gold chain that he wore around his neck throughout the summer of 1995 before falling to the Undertaker at SummerSlam 95. You, of course, had all the creatures of the night, the fans that would sit in the front row with the big black wreaths and all that ridiculousness going on during that time. But, man, so cool that we've gotten a figure of Kama. We've never had a figure of Kama. At least of this representation. There's been a bunch of Godfather figures, and then there's a couple Papa Shango figures. There's even a new one that Mattel's putting out in the Superstars line, which looks like a pretty awesome figure. And then we had a couple of, or maybe just one Kama Mustafa figure, which is a bone cruncher in his Nation of Domination gear. So for a long time, that's kind of what I assumed I would have to end up with to represent Kama. I guess that's the closest thing to what he faces when he faces Undertaker. You know, I could get a Godfather figure, and I do kind of want a Godfather figure, or even a Good Father figure, and I'll explain why I would love to have one of those here in just a moment. But, you know, I never pulled the trigger on that Kama Mustafa because it's not quite right, and I guess I kind of held out hope that we'd get something like this, but I never thought it would see the day. So I'm going to unbox this bad boy while I talk about our Talking Taker friendship and relationship with the man right here. This is me and Travis at the big event, New York, in March of 2020, literally hours before the world shut down for COVID-19. This was like one of the last events that took place wrestling-wise, and we were so lucky to, of course, meet The Undertaker. As you can see, our poster right there, signed by The Undertaker, and got a picture with him, and then also got a picture with The Godfather, and I'll explain again why that's significant as we're doing this. But, man, take a look at this figure. Thanks to Luis in the Fig Cave Facebook group, who sold this to me at a great price, shipped it out, mint on card, and you know, it's beautiful. If I was a mint on card collector, this would be perfect. Well done. But I'm gonna open this guy up. Of course, you can see his career highlights. WWE Hall of Fame inductee as the Godfather, from Las Vegas, Nevada. Weight 330 pounds, height 6'6", and after melting down the Undertaker's urn and crafting it into a chain, the Supreme Fighting Machine battled the Dead Man at SummerSlam 1995. Let's open him up right here. Love it. I do remember the comic gimmick very vividly. Of course, I'm a child of the 90s, big new generation fan. That was like the peak of my wrestling obsessiveness and fandom. So I remember the Kama gimmick and the vignettes. Of course, I remember him in when he debuted. He had the white undershirt under the same singlet and gear, and I assume as he was modeled after the guy from the Killer Instinct video game, the boxer and Street Fighter in there. That's what I always assumed. I cannot remember his name for the life of me. It's gonna kill me. Oh my gosh, Travis would kill me. I'm sure he remembers it exactly. But that's who Kama always reminded me of. I always thought he just had a strange name. And I think Bruce Pritchard on Something to Wrestle said it's because he's like a boxer, comma, kickboxer, comma, wrestler, comma, jiu-jitsu fighter. And that's where Kama comes from. I don't know if that's true, if that's actually what it was, but he was the supreme fighting machine. I wasn't particularly a huge fan of him as a wrestler, but I think, he does, while he's short-lived, this gimmick, it's significant enough. I think he definitely deserves an elite figure. There we go. He's tied in there pretty well. It's got your alternate hands here for the C-grips. I don't play with these, and I really just pose them on the shelf. So most of the time with those, I just kind of toss those out unless you got a significant pose like a Too Sweet hand or a chokeslam hand. But goodness gracious, what a spectacular figure! Take a close look at there. He's got all of Kama's tattoos on the chest as well. That is awesome. This is an Elite, so definitely you've got all the movement and playability on there that you could ask for. Really nice design on the boots with the kick pads on there that are like almost a separate piece. I don't know if you can really see that here, but that's cool. I've never really seen that on a figure. I don't know if they've used that on somebody else as well, but that's a really nice touch and attention to detail. I mean, the singlet is perfect. It looks exactly what it looks like, and that head scan is right on. I mean, the face, the hair, I mean, this is a 10 out of 10. No complaints here on this figure, and this is really why you need it, and this is why you need it for an Undertaker figure and opponent collection. The gold chain, the former urn right there. Undertaker gets it back and poses with it, does the Shakespeare pose at the end of the match. But you got to have Kama wearing it. What a great heel move. What a great cocky, arrogant heel move to melt down the urn and to have it be a gold chain. It's so ridiculous. But man, this is awesome. This is going to go front and center on my 90s Undertaker opponent shelf. Not because it's a particularly great match, not necessarily one of my favorites. You can go hear our coverage of it on the Talking Taker podcast, right here on our YouTube channel, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Should be in the early set of episodes, of course, since it's a 1995 match, probably in trying to think here. It could be like the late teens, probably. But I'll definitely throw a link up to it. You can click a link right here, or you can go down in the comments and get the link to it to watch that. But just, it's picture perfect. You couldn't ask for anything better than that. If Jax made one, it would not look nearly as nice as this. So this is fantastic. So glad to have this in my collection. Again, thanks to Louis or Luis in the Facebook group for the Fig Cave. I'll put him right here while I finish out a couple of Kama stories. But join the Fig Cave Facebook group. A lot of great deals and sales going on in there. A lot of great interaction as well. Of course, you can hear me on the Fig Cave podcast. I did a special edition on their podcast talking Undertaker figs a couple months back. So definitely go check that out. I gotta have this front and center as well because, like I said, the Godfather, Kama, Charles Wright, he is a friend of the show, of the Talking Taker podcast. Back in the day, we had a running joke, maybe not a joke, I guess it was serious, to Travis, right here, my co-host and my best friend, that his favorite faction of all time was the Right to Censor. That he loved them, Travis is a good, upstanding, moral Christian guy, and he's not an obsessive, religious freak like that or anything like that. But we always joked that he would have fit right in with the Right to Censor. So when Undertaker, while that gimmick was going on, and Undertaker had a little interaction with Right to Censor on TV, we always said that Travis should be an honorary member of the Right to Censor. So in April of 2019, I actually purchased Travis a cameo from Charles Wright, from the Godfather, from the Good Father himself, and he inducted Travis into the Right to Censor as an honorary member. In fact, I'm going to just play that video right here for you guys so you can see it itself. It was perfect. Well worth the money spent on this cameo.
Hey, what's going on, Travis, Travi, WWE Hall of Famer. That's right, look at that ring. The Godfather here. And I'm doing something that I rarely, seldom do. I put on this Right to Censor shirt and a white hat. Bro, I'm glad that you were a fan. There wasn't many fans of the RTC. Most people hated us. I did the best job I could at it. But, bro, it was hard going from the Godfather to the Good Father. I had a lot of problems with it. I did the best job I could. I was a little mean to Stevie Ray. To this day, I'm friends with Bull and Ivory and Val. And anyway, man, it's cool that you were a fan of that faction because it was pretty cool, I guess. Like I said, I did the best I can. But anyway, man, your boy Alex reached out to me and he wanted me to make you, which I'm going to do right now, make Travis an honorary member of the RTC. I'd say smoke him if you got him, drink him, but if you're a member of the RTC, you can't do any of that, man. So go out there and vote. How about that? Anyway, it's time once again. Well, I can't do that. I'm the Godfather. Stay up, my brother, and happy birthday. Enjoy your day. Peace.
So yeah, that's our number one reason why the Godfather, the Good Father, Kama himself, the man of many gimmicks, is a friend of the show. But then, like I said, we also met him at the big event in New York in 2020, and he was we spoke to him for a couple minutes, and we brought up that cameo, and he said he remembered it. Because I'm sure he doesn't get very many requests to be the Good Father very often, but he honored that request and put on the Right to Censor shirt, which was so cool. But he said he remembered it, and we actually asked him at that time another long-standing question and topic of conversation on our podcast about those infamous pants that The Undertaker wore at Survivor Series 2000. The rumor has always been that Undertaker forgot his gear that day and had to borrow these ridiculous leather snakeskin pants from The Godfather and wrestle in those that night. He never wore them since that time, and they look very similar to a pair of pants that The Godfather would end up wearing at Royal Rumble 2002. And we kind of debunked that on our podcast for a lot of different reasons and did our own analysis, but we got confirmation. Didn't record it. It wasn't an official interview, but I just take my word for it. We had the conversation with him, and Godfather himself told us those were not his pants. His pants would have been too big for Taker, and there's no way that those were the same pants. And Godfather actually shared one of our Instagram posts. He reposted it on his own Instagram page with that same idea, debunking that theory about the pants. So we always joke that Godfather, the Good Father, Papa Shango, Kama, Charles Wright, we always joke that he's a friend of the show, but he's a super nice guy, super friendly guy. So glad that we did get to interact with him and have that little running gag of him, and so glad that I finally get to represent him on the Talking Taker Rogues Gallery shelf. Still have many more to go, so be sure to subscribe to the Talking Taker YouTube channel to see me as I collect those. We got more content, clips from the show, and of course our full video version of the Talking Taker podcast, Digging Up the Dead Man with our encyclopedia exploration. We got episodes covering every single one of his pay-per-view matches, and now we are going every month. The first day of every month, we got a new episode coming out exploring his Hall of Fame legacy. So be sure to subscribe, check all those out, watch the videos, subscribe where you get podcasts, and as always, take her easy.